Sophie just saw Tyler's rent bill. Not his Manhattan rent, not his San Francisco rent, his Austin, Texas rent, a city that Americans consider affordable. $1,400 a month for a one-bedroom apartment. Sophie converts that to pounds, just over 1,100 quid. She goes quiet. Her London flat cost £1,800 a month. That's about $2,200 for a flat half the size of Tyler's apartment. Tyler looks at her and says, "Yeah, that is actually a pretty good deal. My buddy in Brooklyn pays $4,000. Sophie needs a moment. Here's the thing about rent that makes the US versus UK comparison different from every other topic we have covered. With salaries, one country clearly earns more. With healthcare, one country clearly pays more. But with rent, both Americans and British people are absolutely convinced the other country has it worse. And here's the strange part, they're both right. The numbers tell completely different stories depending on which numbers you look at, and behind those numbers is a completely different psychological relationship with what it means to pay someone else to live somewhere. Start with the headline comparison that everyone expects. A one-bedroom apartment in Manhattan costs around $4,200 a month. Some estimates put the average closer to $5,000. A one-bedroom flat in central London costs about £1,800 a month, or roughly $2,200. That looks like an easy win for Britain, almost half the price. But zoom out from the big cities and the picture shifts. The national average rent in the US is about $1,800 a month. The national average rent in the UK is about £1,285, which converts to roughly $1,600. Still cheaper in Britain, but the gap shrinks dramatically once you leave the headline cities. And then look at the cheapest options. In the US, you can find cities like St. Louis or Cleveland, where a one-bedroom goes for under $1,000. In the UK, the cheapest major cities are Newcastle at £800 and Belfast at $750. Converted to dollars, those are not far apart at all. The headline numbers favor Britain. The fine print is more complicated. The raw price comparison misses something critical, what you actually get for your money. The average American rental apartment is significantly larger than the average British flat. Tyler's $1,400 one-bedroom in Austin is about 700 square feet. Sophie's £1,800 flat in London is roughly 450 square feet. American apartments almost always come unfurnished, empty walls, no appliances beyond maybe a fridge and stove. You buy everything yourself. British flats frequently come furnished, carpeted, with a washing machine, and sometimes even basic furniture included. So the American renter pays less per square foot, but spends thousands up front to fill the space. The British renter pays more per square foot, but walks in with a functional home. Different prices, different products, same word, rent. Now here's where the comparison gets genuinely painful for both sides. In the United States, more than half of all renter households are cost-burdened. That means they spend 30% or more of their income on rent and utilities. More than 12 million households are severely burdened, spending over half their income just on housing. Those numbers hit a record high in recent years, and they keep climbing. In Britain, private renters spend on average about 34% of household income on rent. In London, that figure rises above 40% of take-home pay. And among low-income private renters in London, a staggering 96% spend more than 30% of their income on rent. Both countries have a rent crisis. The American version is wider, affecting more people across more income levels. The British version is deeper in specific regions, especially London, where the squeeze is suffocating. On paper, Britain looks like the better deal. Lower rents, furnished flats, national health service, so you're not choosing between rent and medical bills. But here's what the numbers hide. British rents exploded between 2022 and 2024. Annual rent increases hit 8 to 10% in major cities. Wages didn't keep pace. The gap between what renters earn and what they pay has been widening faster in Britain than in America over the last 3 years. The UK rental supply is shrinking. Tax changes and mortgage rate increases pushed thousands of private landlords to sell their properties. Fewer rentals available means more competition, which means higher prices for everyone still renting. And here's the part that rarely makes the headlines. The UK has a much smaller percentage of households that rent compared to the US. About 20% of English households are private renters. In the US, about 36% of households rent. So while the percentages look better, the American rental market is serving a much larger portion of the population. The British system works better for fewer people. The American system works worse for more people. This is where the real difference lives, not in the price tags, but what renting means in each culture. In America, renting carries a psychological stigma. The American dream is home ownership, a white picket fence, equity building, independence. If you're renting past a certain age, the cultural message is that you haven't made it yet. This is not just social pressure, it's embedded in the financial system. American tax policy rewards homeownership with mortgage interest deductions. The entire wealth-building framework assumes you'll buy property. Renting is positioned as a stepping stone, not a destination. Research from the Yale School of Public Health found that Americans who are cost-burdened by rent report significantly higher levels of psychological distress, anxiety, and depression. The burden is not just financial, it's the feeling of falling behind a cultural benchmark that says you should own something by now. In Britain, the psychology is different, but equally heavy. Renting used to be normal. For most of the 20th century, a large percentage of the British population rented from local councils. Social housing was not stigmatized, it was simply how housing worked. Then came the right to buy scheme in the 1980s. Millions of council homes were sold to tenants. The social housing stock shrank. A new generation that expected to rent affordably found themselves pushed into a private market that was never designed for them. British renters don't feel the same shame that American renters feel. Instead, they feel trapped. Research published in the UK found that the inability to meet ongoing housing costs was directly related to anxiety. The distress comes not from cultural failure, but from the feeling of having no way out of a system that keeps getting more expensive. Two countries, two completely different emotional responses to the same financial reality. American renters feel like they're losing a race. British renters feel like the exit doors are locked. Here's the part that will make you angry regardless of which side of the Atlantic you are on. The UK just passed the Renters Reform Act in 2025. It bans no-fault evictions. It gives tenants the right to keep pets. It limits rent increases to once per year. It requires landlords to meet decent home standards. America has almost nothing like this at the federal level. Tenant protections vary wildly from state to state. In some states, a landlord can raise rent by any amount with 30 days' notice. In others, you can be evicted with minimal process. But the truth that neither government talks about is, in both countries, rent flows in the same direction, from younger, less wealthy people to older, more wealthy people who own property. In the US, the median net worth of a homeowner is roughly 40 times higher than the median net worth of a renter. In the UK, the gap is similarly dramatic. Rent does not build equity, it does not build wealth, it does not give you an asset. In both countries, every rent payment is money transferred permanently from people who have less to people who have more. The American renter and the British renter have more in common with each other than either one has with the homeowners in their own country. The game is the same, the board is just a different size. Tyler and Sophie started this video shocked by each other's rent bills. They're ending it realizing that the real shock is not the difference between their countries, it's how similar the underlying problem actually is. The packaging is different, the numbers are different, the cultural emotions are different, but the direction of the money is the same. So here's the question. If you could redesign the rental system from scratch, what would you change? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you want to see how the US and UK compare on the other big money question, the cost of having a baby, that video is coming soon. Subscribe so you don't miss it.